round of applause. It's very patronising, but I'm going to ask you to do it after 3. Here we go. 1, 2, 3! That was all right. You can do better there. You can make it louder. I reckon you can make it louder than that. Ladies and gentlemen, just one more question. Are you ready for your first comedian? Make more noise than you just did. Go wild, go crazy. Let's welcome to the stage. It's Roger Monkhouse.
Thank you very much. Oh, thank you. No stop. You're too kind. Oh, you have done. There you go. I was sarcastically drawing that to your attention. Sorry, I just clearly took too long to reach the microphone, didn't I? And the fantastic sense of excitement and exhilaration that was manifest in the room, I just pissed it away. It's entirely my fault. I don't blame you at all. Hello. We'll build. It doesn't matter. Very nice to be here. I'll be honest with you, I feel preposterously overdressed looking around. I've clearly misread the dress code, haven't I, completely? It's more Marks and Spencer's casual, usually, or fucking gardening gear in your case, whatever. You've got a hooded top, sir, wonderfully. Did you hotwire a car to come here this evening? How charming. I apologise if slightly incongruous, doesn't really matter. It's very nice, always a pleasure to be here. Please allow me to reintroduce myself. My name's Roger Monkhouse, one to watch in 1990, The Guardian. Whatever. Life doesn't always turn out as you plan. No need to tell that to you, sir, I suspect. Once again, I was dressed like that 4 hours ago, I swear. I was in the garden just digging in the mud. And I just fucking wish I'd turned up like that now. I do. I envy you, sir, because there comes a time in life, I'll explain to the younger folk amongst us who clearly care, frankly, too much about their appearance. There comes a time in life which is very liberating when you just stop giving a fuck. And it's a wonderful day, and you should look forward to it. It's great when the local charity shop starts rejecting your donations, even though you bought the stuff there 4 years ago. It's infuriating that they don't. Good. Many of you, especially around the rear, of course, might be thinking, fuck me, isn't that the bloke that Vladimir Putin probably had poisoned in London? Let's tackle that. Looking remarkably well under the circumstances. Positively glowing. Obviously, it's a different fella. It's just a very simple, silly visual gag. That's all that's happening there. It's just an accessible gag just to establish a level of confidence in the room before proceeding. Arguably, by analysing it, I might have destroyed the effect, but it's too late now. It's just based upon the fact, really, and there's enough wonderful examples in the room, it's just based upon the fact that all bald white men of a certain age, it's like looking into a fucking fractured mirror down here. Tragically, all bald white men of a certain age look like all other bald white men of a certain age. The reason I make that stipulation, please allow me to explain, I'm not being remotely gratuitous, that it simply doesn't work if you're black. If you're black, it's physically impossible to look this ill, apparently. So, lucky black people, you win that one. But if you're white and middle-aged and you take the decision eventually, it's an option, sir. Transparently in denial. When finally you make the decision to remove what turns out to be your only physically defining feature, then you're simply left with the same sallow, cadaverous crown presenting. And you look like every other fucker with the same male pattern baldness issues. Whenever I turn on the news and someone's killed a prostitute or gone on a shooting spree, they invariably look a lot like me, I find. Sometimes I feel obliged to check my diary, but it's just paranoia. That's all that's happening there, please rest assured. William Hague, when will there be a harvest for the world? I'm too sexy for my shirt. Welcome to another episode of The Crystal Maze. There you go, they all work. pick out your favourites. I'm just illustrating the point to death, really there. All of those references very English and all generationally specific as well for what frankly appears to be quite a middle-aged audience. I'm aware I'm not attempting to exclude the younger people. Voldemort might be a more pertinent reference for you, sir. There you go. You look like the sort of people that understand the rules of Quidditch. A long time ago, I tell you this just briefly by way of anecdote before we move on. A long time ago, I gigged in Birmingham in the West Midlands, as well you know, of course. Woo! Indeed. It is an exhilarating place. It's quite exotic and intoxicating, isn't it? In a room which was longer and more narrow than this, if you're prepared to take on the dimensions. The dimensions don't matter that much, I've over-elaborated. But anyway, wonderfully, in Birmingham, a voice, after 10 minutes or more of being on stage, a voice from the darkness at the back of the room shouted at me, and I have to stress that this wasn't a heckle in the sense that there was no malice or mischief. It was clearly something that had just occurred to the gentleman and which he couldn't keep to himself, and I'm inclined to respect that. And this only works in a Birmingham accent. Someone told me it was a black country accent, but the distinction's too subtle for me to pick up on. I've definitely over-elaborated. I fucking hope it's worth it when we get there. I'm beginning to suspect it might not be now, but strap in, we'll all find out. What wonderfully, after 10 minutes of being on stage in Birmingham, a voice from the darkness at the back of the room shouted at me, "Yow, look like a thumb." Isn't that lovely? Isn't that a beautiful thing? Almost poetic in its imagination, isn't it, that? Yow, look like a thumb. Very happy to accept that from an adequate distance, or indeed with adequately impaired eyesight, I do indeed look very much like a thumb. I've no issue with that. I needed to have it translated as well. But what made it special, I then looked out into the room to see half the audience apparently visually verifying the fact with delight etched upon their faces. He really does look like a thumb. It's very sweet. Accents aren't my forte. If indeed there is someone in from Birmingham, I humbly apologise for the shit accent. Although it's not my fault, do something about it. That'd be my tip. Have a bit of self-respect. I'm a big fan of the Bath accent, I should say. Like a lot of people that live in Bath, I moved here from London 5 years ago, and when I rarely do hear the Bath accent, when I accidentally walk through the Snow Hill estate, for instance, after dark, or indeed visit Trowbridge, I do very much like the Bath accent because it's rough, isn't it? But it's not threatening. It's very, very nice that. It's druggy, but it's not too stabby. You know what I mean? I've got an attack dog, but it don't attack nobody. It's quite reassuring. I quite like that. It's very hard to tell where you are from. I'm assuming the majority of you are from Bath, but we're a mobile world now. Many of you might have travelled. We've established that you're from the north, madam. You're from Manchester, which is a charming thing. You are aware we're not having a meat raffle during the course of tonight's show, I hope. I wouldn't want you kicking off at the end when it becomes clear we're not bringing out a big tray of Frey Bentos. I've seen it happen up there. Fucking love a meat raffle in the north of England, don't you? Isn't it? Isn't that true? I enjoy, I should say, please be reassured, I very much enjoy working in the north of England, if only to be reminded how much more genuinely friendly you are up here. In an aggressive and vaguely threatening way. I'm usually pinned up against a wall at some point over a weekend in Manchester, for instance, by someone reminding me how much more genuinely friendly they are up there. I don't know whether I'm going to be stabbed, hugged or buggered. It's very exhilarating. People still smoke and drink to excess in the north. And what's edible is negotiable as well, to be frank. I find that quite charming. There was no horse meat scandal in the north of England, was there? That was with respect to preposterous bourgeois southern affectation, wasn't it? People in the north of England, and I commend you for this, you don't give a fuck what's in your lasagna. You're just glad you've got a lasagna. I think that's great. I think we can probably all agree that anyone that ever bought Tesco value burgers on the assumption that they were patties of 100% pure ground beef cut from prime cuts of organically reared cattle probably wasn't that far up on the food chain themselves in the grand scheme, I think. And might, in a more sane universe, consider themselves lucky that they and their families weren't being used to bulk out more expensive meat products. You do get more right-wing as you grow older. I should explain once again to the younger people in the room, and there are... How many people here are under 25? Oh, there's a few of you. Well, there's more of you than I realised, and that doesn't include you. Well, you're, in that case, madam, representing, you say... well, it's probably just what it said on the Plenty of Fish profile. Doesn't matter, though. That's nice. Representing as you do the coming generation, on behalf of the predominantly middle-aged people in the room, can I apologise to you, madam, just for the state of the world? Shit time to be young. Don't understand the whole thing, but essentially, we've run out of money, you're all fucked. That's the top and tail of it. Good luck with the future, kiddo. You're going to be paying 50, 60% tax by the time you're our age to try and mend the hole in public finances created by our generation's unsustainable affluence. We're part of the generation that partied hard and pissed it up the wall, apparently. I only wish the good times were more memorable, if I'm brutally honest. They weren't that good, were they? But nonetheless, things won't get any better. And we've eaten all the fish as well. What are we like? They were tasty, weren't they? I don't know whether that makes it better or worse. Clearly, I'm attempting to be slightly satirical when I say that. I'm clearly, like most of us here, many of us, I've got kids. Shall I? How many people here got children? Not as popular as they used to be, are they? I appreciate that. This is why we need immigration. You've fucking given up reproducing, haven't you? Place to be a ghost town without immigrants. Some of the older people have had children, fucking nothing over there, apparently. Wow. My eldest is 25 now. I saw him recently because he's fucked off, which is a good thing. That's something to be encouraged and celebrated. It takes a bit of coaxing nowadays. I wouldn't lie, with all due respect to those of you under 25, I find your generation to be infuriatingly spineless and whiny. It's not unfair, is it? Ridiculously fucking needy. No idea how fucking privileged you are. It's pathetic. I'm being bullied in cyberspace. Doesn't exist, for fuck's sake. Man up. When most of us were young, you couldn't even leave the house without a minor celebrity or a high court judge or a member of parliament trying to fuck you. We didn't complain, did we? No. It was character building, that's what it was. So my son, when we talk, which is rare now, Christmas and Easter and family occasions, and by and large, I don't miss the self-righteousness and the judgment and the piety. Are you discussing children now? I don't know quite what's happening. That's just a rumpus. Or indeed the smell of links. But when we talk, which happened recently, I find he lectures me upon my lifestyle. I am, for instance, personally responsible for global warming, according to him. And he can fuck off, as far as I'm concerned. And please accept, I'm not saying it's not happening. I'm not so brave as to swim against the tide of liberal orthodoxy. Clearly something's going on out there. It's entirely appropriate that the younger generation should care and be engaged with environmental politics because, of course, it will impact upon your generation. And I sincerely apologise for the environmental degradation and the hardship that you will all necessarily endure in the second half of your lives. But I'm 50, I've done the maths, and clearly, by the time the shit really hits the fan, I'll be dead. Consequently, I don't think it's utterly unreasonable of me to look forward to a bit of nice weather before I shuffle off this mortal coil. I'm aware I might have oversimplified the issue, but, you know, I think we all know there's people in Scotland fucking praying for global warming just to get through another year. And even on this latitude, and it puts it in perspective, and I think ultimately it's a feather in our cap, a bit of perspective. I think it's, people, by and large, we tend to fear snow more than we fear terrorism, don't we? Which is quite good, I think. Most people here would walk to work past a couple of burning buses, but you put 1/8 of an inch of snow on the ground and civilization starts to crumble, doesn't it? Islamic State might have missed a trick. That's the point I'm making there. I don't want to be giving away any good ideas if we've got any radicalised Islamists in the room. I don't know. They rarely turn up to my gigs. It's gone a bit tense now, but relax. Maybe I'm unreasonably ethnically and demographically profiling you, but to be honest with you, from where I stand, this isn't. I mean, Bath's not a town that fears the jihad, is it? You know what I'm saying? You are, with respect, one of the most ethnically non-diverse groups of people I've stood in front of in a long fucking time. You're not fertile recruiting ground for Daesh, that's the point I'm making there. Unless they've got some sort of deal going with Saga for winter sun, maybe, I don't know. That'd be quite imaginative, wouldn't it? Some of you seem rather anxious about the observation about your ethnicity. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe you've been on diversity awareness days and you're not entirely comfortable with me addressing that. Maybe it's, I don't know. I'm not a racist, I just like the look, as it happens, so fuck off. Back up. I'm a big fan of a bit of diversity. As it happens, we're a mongrel nation, it seems obvious to me. I've got ginger pubes, as it happens, so there's something going on there, you know. It was ever thus. Probably people from all over, I don't know. Do we have Europeans in the room? Okay, all right, so that's kind of proving my point, isn't it, somewhat there? It says statistically there'll be half a dozen Eastern Europeans here, for instance. Do we have Polish people in? No, they're all out working whilst you're on a piss. Brilliant system, isn't it? Hesitate to break it. You see, I'm not so crass as to equate anyone's ethnicity with their migrant status. The whole thing has become a lot more complicated over the last decade or so, particularly by that Eastern European diaspora. This had better be fucking funny soon, hadn't it? It's always been the case. It seems obvious to me. I'm no liberal, but it seems transparently the case. Immigrants don't piss me off by and large, because they're the engine of the economy, aren't they? You know, it's social Darwinism in action. By and large, it's with respect, the flabby, pasty, bone-idle indigenous fuckwits what depress the hell out of me. By and large, clever people move, don't they, when times are tough? It's the dumb fucks what stay where they are. Thus, throughout history, immigration's been the catalyst for all sorts of social and indeed economic benefits and change. Thus, the Huguenots kick-started the Industrial Revolution. America remains a hub of dynamism, based as it is upon wave after successive wave of... It's an ambitious subject for comedy, in fairness to me. My point in a nutshell is quite simply this: if you can make it across the English Channel on a lilo, then fuck it, you've passed the initiative test, I think, have you? Welcome to the British economy whilst it lasts. Without the Eastern Europeans working over here and paying tax over here and contributing on a daily basis to our exchequer, then of course tragically we could no longer afford to keep our northerners in the manner to which they become accustomed. Someone's got to pay for the Sky Sports and Pringles, and I for one don't want to be that man. So basically, you just get a lot more angry as you age. That's really what happens. And I'm sorry if I'm a bad advertisement for that, but it inevitably happens as life slaps you round the face and knees you in the bollocks and runs off with your dinner money. sooner or later you just lose your sensibility. And yet people wrongly assume, and I'll refer to you again, sir, with this, people wrongly assume that middle-aged men aren't enjoying themselves. Actually, we have a fucking good time. We're just not demonstrative about it, that's all. I'm 50, nothing brings me down anymore. Trump, Brexit, bring it on. I've got an allotment, for fuck's sake. And a whole cupboard full of tin soup. I'm practically invulnerable, as far as I can see. My hobbies now include tutting at young people in the street, shouting at the television news, picking up litter on my own road like an angry, self-righteous tramp, leaving my indicator on to piss off other road users. That's a lot of fun, isn't it? Oh, they become irrationally furious. And looking for my reading glasses. That's an average day. I spend a lot of my time pottering around the house developing half-baked crackpot right-wing theories about all sorts of nonsense and having arguments in my head with people I've never even met before. Sometimes there's a bit of a treat on days off. I buy shit from Halfords just so I can take it back and shout at someone on minimum wage. I know that's wrong. Clearly that's unattractive on many levels, but in fairness to me, I've tried it at John Lewis and apparently they train them there for such eventualities and there's relatively little fun to be had. I should explain to anyone in from Trowbridge that John Lewis is a shop. It doesn't matter, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. You probably wouldn't like it. I'm going to go now because I need to urinate. That's another disadvantage of age. You don't have to wake up twice a night to urinate, do you? Whereas most of the people here do. You look as if you don't bother, sir. But might be nice. Ladies and gentlemen, you've got a great night ahead of you. Thank you very much for the time we spent. My name's Roger Monkhouse. Good night.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a little interval, get yourselves a drink, wee cigarette, come back in about 15 minutes. Before I do that, one more time, Roger Monkhouse! See you in a bit.